Welcome back. So hopefully everything's gone well so far in the evening, and hopefully we've got enough time to do a wrap up here of the topic of how should a teacher of God spend their day. Paragraph number 1 talks about how we as teachers of God see things, and what it's really saying is, to the advanced teacher of God, how you spend your day is a meaningless question, because there is no program for the lessons change each day. Yet the teacher of God is sure of one thing: whatever happens during the day does not happen at random. So that's paragraph number 1. We all get that. Whatever happens throughout the day in which we find ourselves in a situation where that higher consciousness, the inner teacher, is working through us, it's not at random. Whether it's these buddy phone calls you make, none of that is by chance. The things that are going to be said, the people that come into your life during the week, every situation that you find yourself in, you're going to be a teacher of God. You're going to have that opportunity to create what we would think of as a holy encounter. And as teachers of God, we're looking for all of those opportunities to do that, to the point where it's automatic for us, right? That we don't have to even think about it. It's just our true nature that we seek to heal every encounter. That's paragraph number 1. Then paragraph number 2. But what about those teachers who have not yet reached that level of certainty? They are not yet ready for such lack of structuring on their own part. What must they do to learn to give the day to God? There are some general rules which do apply, although each one of them must be used as best he can in his own way. Routines as such are dangerous because they easily become gods in their own right. Now that's an interesting thought. Don't make things to a routine other than the routine of allowing the higher consciousness to show you what to do, to speak through you, to not force yourself to say things or act in certain ways. It needs to be automatically flowing through you from your inner teacher. What else does it say here? Broadly speaking, then, it can be said that it's well to start the day in the right way. It's always possible to begin again should the day begin with error, yet there are obvious advantages in terms of saving time. At the beginning, it's wise to think in terms of time. This is by no means the ultimate criteria. The saving of time is an essential early emphasis, although it remains important throughout the learning process and becomes less and less emphasized. At the outset, we can safely say that time devoted to starting the day right indeed does save time. Okay, so that's really telling us that in the morning when you get up, decide that you're going to have this right-minded day, this day when you're going to listen to inner guidance throughout the day. And if you ever find that you kind of break that, because you get into a telephone conversation or a discussion with somebody where they're pulling on you to come back into the old ways of thinking, where they're asking for your opinions in some way, your judgments, your agreements in some way, immediately following that, pull yourself back together and say, I want to be a teacher of God in this situation because there's nothing else. I wish for this situation to be neutral. I do not want to add my energy for or against. That's the way to do it. I don't want to be for or against. I want it to be neutral, because everything in the world really is neutral and has no meaning because it's not eternal. It's just so much flipping and flopping around with all of this stuff. So by being neutral in every situation, we can then see it differently through the eyes of forgiveness, if you like. I'm going to then go down to verse number 4. The course is always practical. It may be that the teacher of God is not in a situation that fosters quiet thought as he awakes. If this is so, let him remember that he should choose to spend time with God as soon as possible. Again, if you're in a situation when you get up in the morning where you've got kids screaming and so on, and all of a sudden the world seems to be right at your doorstep, remind yourself of the kind of day you want and pull yourself back together so that you can make every situation neutral and you become an observer rather than a participant. Become an observer rather than a participant. What that certainly means is there are times when people want to pull you in as a participant. They want you on side, whether it's a little child trying to agree that their brother or sister is terrible for doing this or that to them. Even in that case, a little kid is trying to get you on side and trying to coerce you into being on their side and against someone else. Remain neutral. Always remain neutral. And when you remain neutral, you're able to see with clarity what is going on, and you will have a clear mind. The same procedure should be followed at night. Perhaps your quiet time should be fairly early in the evening. I generally, well, I live alone, so to me it's a little bit different for me, but I always have some quiet time through the and certainly if not in the early evening, by the time it's time for me to go to bed, I usually do some reading from the course, that sort of thing, or something like that, that will bring me back to a thoughtfulness of my day. Verse 6, there's one thought in particular that should be remembered throughout the day. It is a thought of pure joy, a thought of peace, of limitless release, limitless because all things are freed within it. And I do that by telling myself that situations are neutral and they only have whatever meaning I give to them. So if I have put myself through an emotional up or down on something, I need to then review it and look back on it and tell myself, oh, look what you did on that, Paul. This needs to be healed. It needs to be forgiven in your own thoughts. Whether it's other people I'm forgiving, whether it's myself, whether it's a situation, I need to diffuse it of all energy and all meaning, diffuse it of all meaning, of all emotional intensity, so it comes back to neutral. That's what masters do. They bring everything back to neutral. It does not have high burning passion, and they don't drop to lows and they don't drop to highs. They're neutral. They're not against things or for things. They're neutral on things in the world. So there's that thought. Number 7, how simply and how easily does time slip by for the teacher of God who has accepted his protection. He needs make no distinctions among the problems he perceives. Wow. We do not need to make any distinction between what we think are problems going on out there. We don't have to say to ourselves, wow, this problem this person's going through, oh, that's really terrible. That's such a struggle. And then this other problem over here, oh, it's nothing. They're making a big deal about nothing. We don't need to do that. We need to back off, and they're all the same. Because as the Course says, there's one problem and one solution. The one problem is separation from the oneness. The solution is reconnect. And there's no degrees of big problems or little problems because those are all individual perceptions made to be better or worse depending on viewpoints. But if we make them neutral, then we remove all energy behind them. And we make them not only neutral for ourselves, but for the other participants. Verse number 8. There's temptations along the way that the teacher of God has yet to travel. And he needs to remind himself throughout the day that he is protected. How can he do this? Particularly during the time when his mind is preoccupied with external things. But you can try, and your success depends on your conviction that you will succeed. And that's where you simply back up and say, this issue, this problem that seems to be taking place, has its own meaning that I've given to it, and it appears to somehow be teaching me something, but I'm the one that's giving the meaning to it. So I choose now to back off and have no meaning. And you might feel a bit odd doing that because you're removing all of the energy surrounding it. It could be someone else complaining to you about something, and you're finding yourself getting pulled into it, and later you're thinking, I allowed myself to get snookered into that corner. I allowed myself to be taken in on that. I need to now back off and neutralize all my emotions surrounding that and send love to the person and surround love and light not only to yourself but to everyone else in that concern, in that problem. So again, you bring it back to neutral. That is your protection, is neutrality. The avoidance of magic is the avoidance of temptation. In other words, don't be tempted to get suckered into things, to be pulled into things. It's that old saying I use sometimes. You can't help somebody who's drowning in a well by jumping in there with them, by sympathizing with them, by feeling sorry for them, by pitying them. You have to remove yourself from it. And it's helpful, I find, if I remind myself that this is just an illusionary dream anyway. It's a dream that I'm having. It's a dream that other people are having. It's really me. It's all coming from me. And I need to neutralize all of that. There's no substitute for the will of God. In simple statement, it is to this fact that the teacher of God devotes his day. In other words, I say to myself, what would be the will of God in this? Well, I don't think of God as an abstract in this situation. I think of my inner teacher as being that source that will guide me, because I am part of God. I'm part of that oneness. And that Holy Spirit is what bridges that gap until the time comes when I'm totally part of that oneness. And then I am doing the Holy Spirit's job, because I will now be doing it. But if I have times when I'm in and out of situations, I'm engaged in them, I'm not engaged in them, I'm forgiving, other times I'm not forgiving, I need the Holy Spirit there to remind me to think again and to choose differently. So there is no substitute for that inner presence. I can't have my own will supersede that, thinking I know best, because then I lose all sight of the program. Number 11. Is not this an exchange that you would want? The world would gladly make it if it knew it could be made. It's God's teachers who must teach that it can. And so it is the function to make sure that they have learned it. And again, what are we learning? We're learning what our inner teacher is showing us by functioning through us, and by us expressing it through our thoughts, our words, our actions, the way we forgive, the way we stop our judgments, the way we neutralize situations in our own minds and removing energy. When we do that, that's how we teach the world, by being that higher-minded individual. And that's verse number 11. Let's see if there's anything else. All through his training, every day, every hour, every minute, every second, God's teachers must learn to recognize the forms of magic and perceive their meaninglessness. Of course, what the Course refers to as magic is simply the meaning that the world puts on things, and that the meaning we put on everything. We're trying to apply meanings to things that have no meaning because we're dreaming them up. We are producing the movie, if you like, which the Course calls magic. It's like having a magic movie show. We're the ones producing that. It's up to us then to neutralize all of those and come back to a state of neutrality where then love can see the way. There we go. That's it for the Manual for Teachers on that particular topic. And fabulous. See how you've done. I would imagine you covered all of those points, or most of them. So there we have it for tonight, and I will post the next one. I'll try to get it up in time before next week so you can have a chance to look at it if you wish. And I'll be sending you an email to each of you, because if I have your emails, that will allow you to look at these lessons on your own. So that at this point you just enter that in. It takes you right to the particular video that is for that particular week. And then I'll write a bit of text below that on the YouTube, where they have a description box below that, with reading in the course that matches up with the discussion. There we have it, and let's see how we do tonight, and let's discuss it and see if there's any way we can improve things as we move along. And again, thanks everybody for your support with all of this. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.